Hey everybody, I hope you are well and staying warm. I am home, I'm trying to stay out of the ice and snow a little bit. I have an old dog bed that my dog Nellie has chewed up into little pieces that I rescued from the basement as a place to rest my leg on an old footstool next to me. So I'm getting comfortable here. Although I wish I were outside, it looks beautiful. We are still sort of in the table setting part of the legislature. Lots of, in finance, we are, trying to set our agenda, but we're also just trying to set this calendar for things. Reviewing the proposed bills that are coming in. So this year, this being a long session, any legislator can submit any bill that they like. Most bills that actually move in the legislature are put forward by a committee, but not all. And those proposed bills, which are the ones put into the system by individual or groups of legislators, are really good. They're a source of good ideas, and they're also an indication of what people's priorities are in the broader legislature. So we have in finance over 250 bills so far that have come to us. I know there are more because I sat in another committee meeting. The Energy Technology Committee referred a few bills to us because what happens in our nonpartisan office sorts the bills and assigns them each to a committee. And sometimes the committees decide to reassign them because we have overlapping jurisdictions. And so a committee, Energy and Technology, for example, this morning decided to reassign a couple of their bills to the Finance Committee because they do have fiscal or revenue implications. So things get sorted. That takes time, particularly when you're a big committee like the Finance Committee, and we have a lot to get through. So I have been working through that spreadsheet and trying to put things in categories and organize stuff. Also, office hours, each committee is still holding those. Mostly those are for non-committee members, and so it's really impossible for me to go to all of them. But next up this afternoon, after I finish this, is the office hours for the GAE committee, which stands for Government Administration and Elections. And I know you all are interested, and I have some thoughts on what we do about the referendum that passed on your ballot last time to allow for no excuse absentee ballots, and how that interacts with our creation of an early voting system last year, which was, I think, a good thing, but very onerous for our towns. And I think we've learned a lot in terms of, when people showed up and when they didn't, and what we can. I have lots of ideas from the people in our district who do that work about how, what we ought to do to make that a little easier for towns to manage, while also ensuring that we're increasing access to the polls. Another thing that's happening at the moment are informational forums. A lot of committees, including the Finance Committee, before we start the sort of more official committee process, we hold forums. We invite people to come in and explain an issue. Sometimes it's, for example, in the Finance Committee, we're going to have an informational forum on the fiscal guardrails so that people in the broader legislative and the Finance Committee can understand them, and we can think about what they've done for us and how they work, because they're quite complex. And others are they're focused on trying to craft legislation coming up. So we had a big one yesterday in both. It was a joint informational forum between the Environment Committee and the Energy and Technology Committee. I sit on both of those committees. Only got to take up one seat. Actually, that's not true. With my legs, sometimes I do take up two seats, so I guess I did take advantage of that. Anyway, I was on municipal solid waste, and how we have a crisis in Connecticut in dealing with our municipal solid waste responsibly, and with environmentally appropriate ways, and ways that are cost effective for our towns. And we out here in particular have a particular blinking light because the waste to energy facility that a lot of towns in the 64th district were part of before, known as MIRA, is closed down, and we're dealing with the aftermath of that and trying very hard. In addition to this hearing yesterday, I've been participating in a lot of meetings talking to a lot of our first selectmen, and a lot of meetings with the Council of Governments, which is the sort of kind of county-like body that we have in Connecticut, which is a consortium of towns in various regions. Ours is the Northwest Hills Council of Government. Trying to come up and preserve a public option for our towns to continue to deal with municipal solid waste, so that we can both reduce the waste that we're creating by, for example, having more composting programs and food scrap diversion programs, but also have a way to deal with, that will never deal with everything, and so reducing the stream and then try to figure out how to responsibly deal with that. We had a lot of interesting testimony from various parts of the state, including from Jen Heaton-Jones, who runs Houstonic Resources Recovery Authority, which serves Kent. And she talked about a particular grant and program that Kent has done and the data on that and how it's worked. So I think there's a great deal that the rest of the state can learn from Kent. So cheers to Kent for having done some serious work in how you deal with your municipal solid waste. While also focusing on solutions and focusing on how we need to invest in new technologies to deal with this in a responsible and serious way. And one of the interesting points that I think Jen Heaton-Jones made is that 50 years ago, we made a 50-year plan in Connecticut. And actually, if you look back at it, it's quite prescient about the issues. It's quite serious about taking a long-term view, and we are overdue for taking another long-term view on our trash situation. So that's at the table. I'm looking forward to being a big part of that conversation, both continuing to resolve how we could create a public option for us in the Northwest corner, but also how we deal with trash throughout the state. Interestingly, that is, so in addition to all the table setting stuff, I am still lots of meetings, many of which are requested of me that I do in these 20-minute increments with advocates and colleagues, and some of which I am requesting myself. So it's a sort of a balance. So I have coming up 3 meetings with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, one on bears, one on the aquatic invasive hydrilla, and another on trash. So there's a lot of sort of back and forth of, taking people who reach out to me and tee up stuff and provide me with information and then setting up more meetings. I do spend a lot of time on screen during those meetings, which are mostly virtual for me. The other thing that I wanted to, we do have our first session in which we will vote coming up on January 28th. That will likely be routine things such as voting on judges, meaning they have to be done early. They have to be done in a timely way because those appointments need to be made. But we also may, for example, be dealing with sort of an urgent situation, which is correcting a mistake. So we passed, I just want to highlight this because I think it's really important for us, the legislature, and of course in our lives, to take a look honestly at what we've done and try to fix it when we've got it wrong. We all make mistakes, and we all know people whose philosophy is deny, 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 and sometimes that's very frustrating. So we did make a drafting error on a bill that actually, it's a veterans bill, but it went through the Finance Committee with respect to a property tax deduction exemption that we created for completely disabled veterans. And there's very specific language that the Veterans Administration turns out uses in order to mean completely disabled, and I mean that thoroughly, completely, 100% disabled. We didn't use the really specific language, and so it's causing a lot of complexity for our towns. I am trying to push hard to resolve that quickly so that we can, reduce the complexity. We will fix it eventually, but I'm still pushing to get that fixed right away before it actually goes into action. So I'm hoping we do that, but I may or may not win that argument because others would like to put it off. And then I wanted to just note, in addition to sort of, I put in the notes here, the trash talk, which is actually not trash talk, but there is another kind of trash talk, of course, going on that's quite mean-spirited in other parts of the country. And so I wanted to also highlight that my day this morning started off with a meeting of the Northwest Youth Services Bureaus in our region. And first of all, hearing about their work is incredibly moving, but it really, what you see is skill and thoughtfulness and kindness in action. People who have dedicated themselves to identifying and finding that kid or that family who's struggling for one reason or another, and the reasons are many, and finding a way to make them feel safe and heard and cared for and getting an education. And I just want to say what a great way it was for me to start my day, and I look forward to continuing to support all the youth services bureaus throughout the state that do that work. Hope you're well. Enjoy the sunshine. See you soon.